Eagles Divisional Round game against the New York Giants 2 days away. We're going to continue the conversation, talking Eagles, everything we learned from practice yesterday. Jonathon Gannon, the most unjustly criticized Philadelphia sports figure the last 20-ish years, hinted at it yesterday, ran the poll question today. We're going to go over the results, at least up to this point. Tyrese Maxey still coming off the bench. We got Sixers, Blazers preview tonight. All that and more, trending in the AM. It starts in 30 seconds.
Holding, gets around in front. Joel Embiid,
and Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM on DSM Media. Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. But make sure you do me that favor and hit the like and the subscribe button on the YouTube page. If you're watching on Twitter, great. Retweet, follow us. But if you want to get interactive with the show, the place to do that is to head over to the YouTube page and do the like and the subscribe over there. That's the place you could drop your questions, thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to do to get interactive with the show. The YouTube page is the place to do it. I am your host, Phil Stifle. You can follow me on Twitter at Beard and Knowledge. And you should, because that's the only place you can get the great interactive poll questions and the great interaction that I put out there. And we are going to get into my poll question. I hinted at the topic yesterday as we were talking Jonathon Gannon and the coaches, the assistant coaches of this team. Is Jonathon Gannon the most unjustly criticized Philadelphia sports figure of the last 20 years? And we're about 120 votes in on this poll. We got some interesting thoughts on it. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. 2 days, exactly. 2 days until we beat those New York Giants. And we are going to beat the Giants. And Joe, we're going to start right there with this Eagles team and confidence and things like that because, you know, practice yesterday. A lot came out from practice. Well, two really big things that I've touched on this week already that came out in the positive light for practice. And I want to bring out one negative thing from practice, too. My man, how you doing today, Mark? Hope you're doing well. I bet you would love this unjustly criticized Jonathon Gannon conversation we're going to have in a little bit because you're a little older school and some of the names that have been mentioned on this poll question and the comments, right up your alley, my man. But yesterday, first thing that came out of practice yesterday that I noticed in the positive light, guys, is Miles Sanders. He had no knee brace on. That, to me, guys, is going to be so crucial to have a healthy and 100% Miles Sanders. I said it yesterday briefly. It's skating under the radar how big of a deal Miles Sanders' knee issue, whatever it may be, because they really haven't talked about it much this year, why he was wearing the knee brace, why he wasn't getting as much playing time as he was early in the season, those last 3-4 weeks of the year. You know, we theorized that maybe it had something to do with the fumbles, and he had upset a few too many people with those fumbles, wasn't taking certain things seriously. Who knows? But when you think about it, the knee brace and everything else that's going on, maybe it was a more serious injury than was let on, and that played into the factor. But having a healthy Miles Sanders back there just opens the door to so many parts of this game. Having a healthy Miles Sanders' effectiveness this year, his best year as a pro so far, doesn't happen. Or Joe, I'm losing my train. Jalen Hurts' success doesn't happen without Miles Sanders' success. A.J. Brown's success doesn't happen without Miles Sanders' success. Dallas Goedert's success, Devontae Smith's success, the offense. Look, the running game of Miles Sanders has complemented them so well. I'm not trying to say they wouldn't have had success. It wouldn't have been as successful as it was without having a great running back that's capable of busting off 5-6 yards every single time he touches the football. So they better actually use the hell out of him. Absolutely. And there's the story, obviously, you know, yeah, I mean, we really didn't see a lot of that. The screen game was really Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith and unsuccessfully Quez Watkins, but Dallas Goedert plays that role well. Feed him the ball. Just give him. Let's ride him down. I don't want to talk meanly about him, but He's a free agent at the end of the year. Let's just ride him down. Just run him out. Burn him out if we have to. Now, obviously, yesterday after practice, or maybe it was before practice, Miles spoke with the media, and I guess he was asked about his contract situation being a free agent, and he said he wants to be here. He wants to stay in Philadelphia. He loves this team. He loves this city. He loves being a part of this organization. And two things about that. One, obviously, he's a free agent. He's played himself into a bigger payday than we expected, because obviously coming into this year, we didn't expect much from Miles Sanders. But he wants to be here. And he was very positive in the way he gave an answer. A lot of athletes in that situation, could have given the quote unquote, sales pitch kind of answer, like, well, we're focused on the Giants. We'll deal with that after the season. I don't know what's going to happen. It's up to my agent. It's up to Howie Roseman. No, Miles Sanders just came out and flat out said, I want to be here. I love this city. That just kind of shows what kind of team and locker room and camaraderie there is amongst the players here. They all love each other. They all want to be here. I won't lie, Mark. I said this the day he was drafted by the Eagles, that Miles Sanders was better than Saquon Barkley. And if Saquon Barkley wasn't at Penn State, Miles Sanders would have had 10 times the college career that Saquon Barkley did. But Miles Sanders was stuck behind Saquon for his first 2 or 3 years at Penn State. I honestly do believe, especially now because of the knee injury that Saquon suffered, that Miles is definitely better than Saquon, especially going forward, in my opinion. And I think there's more talent there. And in the right situation, Miles Sanders' numbers the last few years would have been even better. But he had the fumble issues and some injury issues. Miles Sanders has injury issues. He's been injured every single year of his playing career. He didn't miss games this year, but he obviously was wearing the knee brace for 3 or 4 games. So that was kind of into that injury history thing there. But I just love the fact that Miles was so openly positive about wanting to be an Eagle, wanting to stay in this city, not causing a distraction by saying, yeah, I want to get a contract, my agent, whatever, we'll see what happens. No distraction. He just said, I love this place, I love this city, I love this team, and I want to be here. So that kind of puts Howie, in a tough position where he probably values running backs at a certain dollar amount. And Miles Sanders obviously has said he wants to be here. So that Mr. Negotiator, Howie Roseman's going to try to get him at a cheaper price. There is a lot of free agents, obviously. We'll talk about that after the season's over. But now Howie knows that Miles wants to be here. Maybe there is a way we keep more of these guys together than we think, because they want to be here. Everybody wants the dollars and cents. It's all about that. But most athletes, once they get to a certain part of their career, whether it's $10 million or $8 million, it comes down to happiness and chances to win. Some athletes, Aaron Rodgers maybe, Lamar Jackson, they don't care. They just want the dollars. But they're big egos, and they're me first people. You want people on your team that are willing not to take a discount per se, because what's $2 million in the grand scheme of things to these athletes? They want to win, and they want to be happy. And I think that says a lot about Miles Sanders, the person. If he is willing to take a quote-unquote team-friendly deal, that says a lot about him personally and the city and this team. Look, Jalen Hurts, we're going to get into Jalen Hurts' injury in a second, but Jalen Hurts makes people want to come to Philly. Jalen Hurts, people gravitate towards him. They love his work ethic. I've talked about it literally for over a year now, his intangibles. People like Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, anybody, any free agent coming up this offseason, they're going to want to be in Philly. Now, there's not a lot of offensive holes or spots to fill on the roster, but people want to be in Philly because of Jalen Hurts. They gravitate towards him. And that's something that's going to help Howie in the future when he's continuing to build this team constantly around Jalen. Once Jalen gets into his bigger contracts, people want to be here with him. And Miles Sanders' statements yesterday kind of do that. But again, like I said, him having no knee brace on, huge, huge, huge. If we've got a full-bore Miles Sanders, that helps Jalen Hurts, who I'm going to say, when I shared one of the video clips from his practice yesterday when they were doing the ball handling drills. And let me tell you something. Talk about babying, protecting, coddling an injured quarterback. They say he's not on the injury report. Again, yesterday, there was like 20 names on the injury report yesterday, mostly for rest purposes. They practice limited in a restful way so that they're fully fresh, no risk. Jalen Hurts wasn't on that list. Jalen Hurts went full bore yesterday, but in such a protected way. And they're doing the ball handling drills, and everybody's getting smacked with the tackling things and the things to try to make sure you're holding the football well. And Jalen Hurts runs through that drill, and they barely touch him. And everybody's flipping onto the mat, and he kind of rolls onto the mat. I won't lie, guys. I am slightly concerned. This Eagles team has been they've taken the Flyers approach to handling the discussion of injuries. And some people hate that. I don't mind. You don't want to paint a bigger target on people than they already have. Does Miles Sanders' injury history make him worth potential? Yeah, I mean, exactly. I did talk about that a second ago. I mean, he does have an injury history. And I think that plays into it a little bit. I wouldn't pay him I wouldn't pay any running back massive money. I mean, you look at it, some of the top paid running backs, Derrick Henry didn't make the playoffs. Dalvin Cook, one and done. Ezekiel Elliott isn't even the lead running back in Dallas anymore. You pay a big money to a running back, it tends to, hurt where you could build around. Running backs are a dime a dozen. As long as you have a good run blocking offensive line, you're pretty much set. But Jalen Hurts, the Eagles are saying he's good to go. They're also saying he's hurting. Jalen Hurts is saying he's hurt, but yet he's not on the injured list. Now, I watched that video literally like 30 times yesterday of Jalen Hurts running through the fumble and the ball protection drills, and every time I watched it, I got more and more concerned. They're using that Flyers approach with Miles, with him, with Lane Johnson, with Avonte Maddox, with all these players this year, and it concerns me. Is Jalen Hurts more hurting than it's being let on? Sanders is a tough spot because you have to – exactly. But if he wants to play here with Jalen Hurts, people want to be here. If Miles Sanders doesn't stay here with Jalen Hurts, somebody else, whether it's Josh Jacobs, Kareem Hunt, whoever it may be, a good running back will be here next year, or they'll draft somebody. So if Miles Sanders wants to stay here and have a chance at a Super Bowl every year, he's going to take whatever Howie Roseman can fairly offer him. Because Howie Roseman's not going to offer him $1 million. He's going to offer him a fair value for what he perceives as the value. So are we concerned? Are we concerned with Jalen Hurts' shoulder going into Saturday night? It's going to be cold. When it's cold and you get hit, it hurts a little bit more. You stiffen up. Your muscles stiffen up. Your bones stiffen up. They ache a little bit more. Like I said, 30 times watching that video, I got more and more concerned every time I watched it that they're not letting on to, like last year, he was good enough to go with the ankle, and then literally 4 days after the season ended against Tampa Bay, he was under the knife getting that ankle surgically repaired or fixed or healed or whatever they had to do with it. I am concerned. I'm concerned that they need to let Jalen Hurts go full bore. No restraints. But if he's hurting more than it's being let on, are they going to look at this team as the Giants and run a very protective, careful offense again, like they did Week 18 against the Giants backups, thinking that they could beat this Giants team, in a cautious way? And the Giants are not as good as people think they are. They should be able to do that, but that's not the way to go about it. You need to be able to take the reins off of Jalen Hurts and let him go. And I will just continue saying, I am concerned. Now, a healthy Miles Sanders takes some of the pressure off of Jalen Hurts. You might want to show that he's capable of running 1 or 2 times, but then let it be Miles Sanders as much as possible to kind of protect him a little bit. You don't want Jalen Hurts running the ball 17 times on Saturday night. That's not protecting him. The other key thing from practice yesterday, and you saw it in a lot of the clips, and I shared one of them, is that Lane Johnson looks like he should be full go. So that's the thing. Like, I am super concerned about Jalen Hurts. I am. But having Miles Sanders back to as close to 100% as we can, and having Lane Johnson back at close to 100%, as close as we can at least at this point, kind of alleviates some of that Jalen Hurts concern, because you've got the best right tackle in football helping with that offensive line. You've got a top-tier running back there that could take some of the running pressure off of Jalen Hurts. That'll help. It doesn't alleviate all of my concern. And if anybody says they have zero doubt or zero concern about Jalen Hurts' health and his shoulder at this point, then you're lying to yourself. Now, maybe you don't have as much concern as I have, but you got to deep down inside in your gut know that there's got to be some concern that one wrong hit is going to set you. Everybody has said his injury can't get any worse. It's a pain tolerance thing. It's going to be 30 degrees at some point in that game, 32 degrees. It's going to be cold. He takes one bad hit the wrong way. It's just going to send pain shockwaves, from his shoulder into his head, into his back, down his leg, whatever it may be. And he's a tough SOB. No doubt about it. But can't we at least think that it might affect him a little bit? He takes one of those bad hits. He gets that pain shockwave rolling through his body. The next play, he's got to throw a bomb to A.J. Brown. Maybe he short arms it a little bit. It's a pick. I am concerned. Look, I don't want to be concerned. I don't want to be the guy that brings any negativity to this, because this Eagles team is primed for a deep run. This is absolutely, Joe. This is kind of towards the reverse version of what the Flyers do with their conservative approach to injuries. It's a day-to-day injury and turns into being a 2-year injury. It's the complete opposite. Maybe they're trying to set the Giants up for failure. You could be right on that, Joe. Absolutely. And if that's the case, I'll come in here on Monday morning and say, Joe, you were right. I mean, it could very well be. You know what, Joe, though? The other thing is, he could be hurting like I'm thinking. And if Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen decide to keep the reins off of him, or take the reins off of him, even hurting Jalen Hurts could go out there and put up a big game. I wouldn't doubt it. As long as he doesn't take one of those hits that sends like shockwaves of pain through his body, he can throw 300 yards against this Giants team. The Eagles can rush for 150 yards against this Giants team. This Giants defense doesn't scare me. They got one or two decent defenders on their front four, but there's nobody on this Giants defense that could stop this Eagles offense. The only thing that can stop them is themselves. And Hurts, Sanders, Johnson all being back. Another week of getting closer to Dallas Goedert 100%. Because let's be honest, since Dallas Goedert's come back, he hasn't been himself. Let's not lie and say that Dallas Goedert has been 100%. He had a bye week, and then this week, 2 more weeks, closer to 100%. Dallas Goedert getting back into his earlier part of this season, skill set and health wise, makes this team even more dangerous. So you really think about it, it's Jalen Hurts' shoulder. Everybody, it looks like Sanders is healthy. It looks like Lane Johnson is good enough to go. We couldn't have asked for a more healthy team at this point of the season. Every team, you look at it, I mean, there was literally, after Tuesday's practice, there were 4 names on the injured list. And 3 of them were still limited participants in practice. 1, Lane Johnson, we expect to play. 1, obviously, was Devontae Maddox. It looks like he hasn't practiced at all yet this week. It looks like it'll be another week without him. They did activate his practice window, so I think he has to be back next week if we make it to next week. So that being said, I would expect Devontae Maddox back next week if possible, which there's obviously that concern what they do at safety. We're going to get more into the X's and O's of the game and key matchups and keys to victory and stuff tomorrow. But I just really wanted to dive into those 3 names, Hurts, Sanders, and Johnson, and what we saw from practice yesterday, the parts that we're allowed to see from practice. And shout out to Ed Kratz from SI and Chris Franklin from NJ.com. They're my 2 guys. I follow a lot of beat reports, but I follow those 2 guys most intently, and I share out a lot of their video clips that they take from the part of practice that's open to the media. So shout out to those 2 guys, Ed Kratz and Chris Franklin. I love them. Chris has been on this show multiple times. Ed's been on this show once before. I love their work, so I just want to shout them out because I kind of steal their clips and everything and post them. I do give them their credit, but I do steal them. All right, so that's that part of the conversation today. So yesterday I hinted at it because we were talking about the assistant coaches and Jonathon Gannon, Shane Steichen, and I hinted at it a little bit yesterday about Jonathon Gannon and is he the most unjustly criticized Philadelphia sports figure of the last 20 years, 25 years, whatever you want to make it out to be. And first and foremost, I put this poll out on Twitter yesterday, and we're up to 119 votes. Not a lot. I love people. This poll will run for 2 more days, so we'll continue to update, where this poll is at. But I think it went at 40 votes. It was exactly 20-20. Yes, no. Is he the most unjustly criticized? When it got to 80 votes, exactly 50%. Yes, no. 40 and 40. When it was at 88, it was still 50%. It took till it got over 100 votes for it to one answer to separate from the rest. We're at 124 votes, and I just refreshed it since the show started. And we're only at 56% no, the most unjustly, to 44% yes. That's as neck and neck of a poll as I've ever run. Normally when I run these polls, it's way over favoring one person versus the other. And I started talking about this yesterday. Is he unjustly criticized? Because let's be honest, Jonathon Gannon, I described it yesterday as a math equation or a math test. You get the answer right, but you don't show your work, or you show how you got that correct answer, and the teacher doesn't like how you got there, so they mark you wrong. Jonathon Gannon has the top 3 defense in football. We hate how he gets there, but in the end results are there. We don't win this season without that defense being a top 3 defense, getting all the sacks they got, all the interceptions and turnovers they forced. So is he unjustly criticized? I don't have to like Gannon. He has performed for the most part this year, but you have to understand he has been thrown a lot. And that is exactly the people that are voting no, Mark. A lot of them are saying it's because of the talent he's had. He still had a mid-level defense last year with no talent. I think we were ranked like the 15th ranked defense in football last year with no talent. So that being said, yes, Gannon has Darius Slade, James Bradbury. They gave him Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They brought in Kazir White. They added Hassan Reddick. All these pieces they've added to this defense. When they were struggling, stopping the run. Still winning a lot of those games, but struggling against the run. They go out and get Linville Joseph and Ndamukong Suh. So he's been giving a lot of talent. His biggest deficiency is lack of situational awareness. Right. That's fair. But we're still 14-3. We're still a first-round bye. So is he unjustly criticized? That was the poll question. So let me refresh this a little bit here again. Let's go into some of these things because there are some fantastic answers. Because I said, if it's not Gannon, who is it? And there are some fantastic answers. Obviously, we're not going to go through each and every one of them, but we're going to go through a lot of them because I think there's some great ones. And there's 2 names that were not mentioned. And this didn't have to be Eagles only. This is across Philadelphia sports. I said Philadelphia sports figures. It could be athletes, coaches, managers, GMs, whatever it may be. And 2 names that I thought deserved to be on this list as maybes unjustly criticized were not. There's some names I didn't expect to see on this list. But obviously Howie Roseman is the answer that most people put. He's being held accountable, not unjustly criticized. But held accountable for what? Having the 3rd best defense in football? Again, it's not how you get there, it's what the results are. And we're a 14-3 team. He's a well sought after potential head coaching candidate. And he's got a top 3 defense. So what are we holding him accountable for? Between the first and third quarter? Giving up one long drive a game to start a game? Dropping back too many soft coverages? We're still 3rd best defense. And we're still a 14-3, one of the 2 bye week teams in the league. So that's just why I'm bringing this up. But obviously Howie Roseman, the guy that got him all this talent, was the most popular answer to the person that's most unjustly criticized. And look, we bash Jonathon Gannon a lot, but man, it's nothing to what we've given Howie Roseman over the years. And I've changed my tune. I finally admitted that, and we did a whole episode on the I am sorry to unjustly criticizing people. And Howie Roseman was one of those people I had to say I am sorry to. Howie Roseman has done a phenomenal job bringing this team to 2 number 1 seeds in a 5-year span. He's had to reboot this team from Andy Reid to Chip Kelly to, Doug Peterson to Nick Sirianni. We've never, in the 27 years that Jeffrey Lurie's been here, we've made the playoffs 17 times. Only twice have we missed the playoffs multiple years in a row since Jeffrey Lurie's taken over. And Howie Roseman's a huge part of all that. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson should play Blankenship at safety. Yeah, we'll get into this more a little bit tomorrow. I know a lot of people like the CGJ at slot, Blankenship at safety. I don't know. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has had a phenomenal season as a safety, KC. Why do you want to move him? It's like the people saying that move Mailata to right tackle when Lane Johnson couldn't play. Why weaken 2 positions when you could just adjust on one? I don't know. You'll see a lot of Maddox a lot of CGJ and Blankenship at the same time, but you'll see Scott in there as well. It depends on situations. It depends on formations from the offense and stuff like that. So obviously Howie Roseman's number 1 most answered name on this unjustly criticized list. Again, is Jonathon Gannon the most unjustly, overly criticized figure in Philadelphia sports last 20, 25 years? Here's an interesting one. I had 2 people mention this guy's name, and I honestly kind of forgotten. Mark, you'll love this one. This name is Mr. Juan Castillo, a great offensive line coach. We think Stoutland's great, and Juan Castillo wasn't him, but he was pretty damn close. But then Andy Reid had the bright idea of moving him to defensive coordinator, and he got trashed as one of the worst defensive coordinators in Eagles history. Well, it wasn't really his fault. He was an offensive coach, an offensive lineman coach, and just an offensive coach his entire football career. And then they go and they throw him on the defensive side and say, run the defense. Exactly. It wasn't his fault. So why did we criticize Juan Castillo? And Dominic Virgil is the first one that brought him up at DFabrizio8188 on Twitter. I think it's a great one there. Somebody saying that Steichen deserves more criticism than Gannon. That's a conversation for a day. Obviously, Howie Roseman. And then the 2 other names. And one of these names is directly shot at Mark, I think. It's Andy Reid got unjustly criticized in this city. Did Andy Reid get unjustly criticized? I mean, he is one of the 5, probably top 5 coaches of all time. We got unjustly criticized Harden. Yeah, he wouldn't be my top Sixers choice of unjustly criticized the last 20, 25 years. Sam Hinkie, who was mentioned multiple times, probably would get more. And I don't think he's unjustly criticized by Sixers fans as much as basketball media and national basketball fans, like the general basketball fans. But yeah, I think we slightly criticized Harden a little too much, me, including me. There were other trades I wanted instead of Harden, but, and we criticized him after how he looked in the playoffs last year, but he was obviously banged up. And he looks better this year. So we might have unjustly criticized James Harden, and he might be only 33 years old, but he's got a lot of miles on those tires. So, he's a 33-year-old that plays or has the body probably of a 38-year-old at this point. Andy Reid, again, was like when I said, no. I do not even know what that means, Mark. Sorry. I'll just leave that there. So Andy Reid, a name that might be unjustly criticized. Probably one of the 5 or 10 best coaches in NFL history. And we kind of let him go. We kind of criticized him for not winning a Super Bowl here. But he did make a Super Bowl, and he did make it to, 4 straight NFC championship games. Andy Reid's a lot similar to Marv Levy. Marv Levy lost 4 straight Super Bowls. I do follow Rachel Nichols, and I haven't seen it. So I'll Google it. I'll find out about it later on the show. But Marv Levy is loved in Buffalo. He lost 4 straight Super Bowls. Andy Reid lost 4 straight championship games, or 3 straight championship games, then won one, and he gets burned in this city. Also on that list is Donovan McNabb, unjustly criticized, and a lot of people mentioned Donovan McNabb unjustly criticized. And I want to throw this little part of it out here because there's another post I made yesterday about Donovan McNabb. If we have time, we'll get into it today. If not, We'll dive into it tomorrow. I know you hate Andy Reid. You will never get over your Andy Reid hate. I know that, Mark. Everybody knows that. But Don McNabb's hate literally started from the first second that he was announced as a Philadelphia Eagle. He was announced as the draft pick of the Philadelphia Eagles at the NFL draft, and everybody at the draft booed him mercifully. Mercifully, whatever. Booed him really badly. And I think that kind of started why he was unjustly criticized. Yeah, he threw worm balls. I put a post. Would Donovan McNabb have the same success as Jalen Hurts if he had the weapons that Jalen Hurts has this year? I mean, you think about it. Torrance Small, Charles Johnson, Todd Pinkston. Somebody said Hank Baskett. Don't forget Hank Baskett was one of his top wide receivers. These guys were scrubs. James Thrash was a big offseason acquisition one year. You put A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith with Donovan McNabb, he would have been better. So I think he was unjustly criticized. We got lots more names here. Let's go down this list. Howie Roseman, Don McNabb, Sam Hinkie, Andy Reid, Sean McDermott. It's an interesting one. 59% completion percentage career-wise. I bet you that percentage goes way up if he has some real wide receivers to throw to. Donovan was the franchise quarterback. I don't know if his criticism was unjust. He had an uphill battle. That's a very fair comment. But he also wasn't given the asset. A lot of people, he wasn't given any real chance. And the 1 year he was given TO, he had his best career, and they made the Super Bowl. So if you would have given him more talent, maybe he would have had more runs to the Super Bowl, but he would never have been equal to what Jalen Hurts is doing this year because Donovan didn't have the intangibles, the locker room leadership ability that Jalen Hurts has. So that's where that whole conversation kind of changes a little bit. But talent-wise, he was obviously hindered on the field. Yeah, that's a fair statement as well. Sean McDermott. Casey, you might not remember Sean McDermott. You're not, as old as Mark and I, but Jim Johnson was a legend in this city. One of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time in NFL history. An NFL legend, not just an Eagles legend, an NFL legend coordinator. He retires, passed away. Sean McDermott's the first guy that takes over for him. And we ran him out. It's similar to everybody wants to run Kate Scott out of town when she took over for Mark Zumo. Or everybody wanted to run Tom McCarthy out of town after he took over for Harry Callis. Everybody wants to run out of town. The guy that takes over, guy or girl that takes over for a legend. And they're not patient. Everybody wants them to be the previous person. Sean was given the impossible task to follow Jim Johnson. And I thought that was a great answer on this thread I started. Because I kind of forgot about it. I kind of forgot he took over for Jim Johnson. And Tom is going big time very soon. Yeah. Hey, Tom is going big time. But we hated him. Yeah, McDermott criticism basically we never gave him. Exactly. And you know what? I like Kate Scott more this year than I did last year. She's been given a second year. And I didn't criticize her because I know it's tough. It's tough following a legend. No matter who you're following, it's tough. Who took over for Charlie Manuel? Which one we went through like 97 coaches in like a 5-year span. Whichever one was first. Following the guy that won the Phillies their first World Series in 28 years was going to be tough. Everybody following Pat Gillick with Ruben Amaro. That's going to be tough. When you follow a legend, it's always going to be difficult. Andre Iguodala following Allen Iverson. One AI to the next. But I thought the Sean McDermott one was a great answer. I'm going through this list here. We've got more here. Let's see. We had an Ed Snyder comment. Ed Snyder unjustly criticized. We hated Ed Snyder in this town, us Flyers fans. Hated Ed Snyder. Hated the way he ran. What's up with the Flyers? I mentioned a Flyers name on this thing. Let's put my graphic up on the screen. We hated Ed Snyder in this town. We ran him out, and this Flyers organization is a disaster now that he's not here. He was massively unjustly criticized. He kept the Flyers relevant in a football, baseball, basketball town. And, yeah, I wish he was back. We also had Carter Hart unjustly criticized. We wanted that franchise goalie for so long. We got him. And now everybody wants to talk about what can we trade for him. Well, you got a quarterback or goaltender, and now you want to get rid of him to see what you could trade him for. So they were our two Flyers comments. Jim Schwartz, unjustly criticized. Let's get back to Eagles. So we got to take the Flyers thing off the screen there. That is an interesting thing because, like you said, he did help us win a Super Bowl. Jim Schwartz is in that Jonathon Gannon category. Same reasons. He was unjustly criticized. People hated the sticks defense. But we won a Super Bowl with Jim Schwartz as our defensive coordinator. It's a really interesting one there because, honestly, nobody put – I'll double check. I'm going through these names here because I got a few more names to mention. But I don't see Jim Schwartz's name anywhere on that list. That's an interesting one there because, look, I criticized him probably more than Jonathon Gannon, actually, that I criticized. But the key thing there is, we've gone into the Donovan one a few times now. Donovan was criticized from second one that he was drafted. But Jim Schwartz, I always used to say that Jim Schwartz had just as many top 10 defenses in his life as a coach as he did bottom 10 defenses. But it was like he had 20 plus years of coaching. He had 5 top 10 defenses, 5 bottom 10 defenses, and then 20 years of just 15th best defense. So I don't know if he was unjustly criticized or just slightly criticized too much because he was just hired as the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator. And we're going to see it again. He's going to make them a good defense. He very rarely will make them a great. He would never. I think if we had Jim Schwartz with this exact same talent we have this year, which Jonathon Gannon has helped lead them to the number 3 ranked defense in football, I think it was Jim Schwartz behind the the calling of the schemes and stuff like that. It might be a top 10 defense, but it wouldn't be a top 3 defense. So I think Jim Schwartz is a little overrated as a defense coordinator, and that's why. Aaron Nola, unjustly criticized. Yeah, we don't get to the World Series this year without Aaron Nola. And I'm the one that has said plenty of times that he was a little, he was never going to live up to that 2018 near Cy Young, form that he had. And I think that's a really good answer. That's the first Phillies we've mentioned. And I got 2 Phillies names on my list that nobody's mentioned before. But Aaron Nola is definitely an interesting one there because we definitely criticized him a lot in this city. And maybe we just shouldn't have because, again, we never had really great teams around him. And now we do, and he had a great season this year. Great season. And he fell apart in the World Series. Yes, I know that. But for the most part, Zach Wheeler was up and down. We had issues throughout our rotation all year. He was the one constant, Aaron Nola. Joe, I'm going to give you a Phillies one. Mark, if you're listening, KC, I'm going to give you a Phillies one that I think is unjustly criticized. Well, I got 2 Phillies ones. But the most important one, the first Phillies name that popped into my head, and I've been trying to get this guy to come on the show in the morning. I would love to get him. Oh, Rhys Hoskins. Absolutely. This is not the name I was going to mention, and Joe Bucci's saying it too. You guys know I'm a Rhys Hoskins fan. You don't replace 30 home runs, 85 RBIs, a 350 an 800 OPS. You don't replace that easily because his few errors in the playoffs are amplified because they're in the playoffs. Rhys Hoskins is 110% unjustly criticized. No doubt about it. Still not my Phillies answer. Nobody gets my Phillies answer here. And honestly, I think some of you guys are going to criticize me for my unjustly criticized answer. And I've tried to get him on the show. He won't answer my messages. Well, he won't answer my comments because his DMs are closed. Is Ruben Amaro. I think Ruben Amaro is unjustly criticized in the city. He took over after Pat Gillick retired at the end of the 2008 World Series run, or World Series win. Ruben Amaro took over a really, really tough spot. Pat Gillick brought all these players in to add to the people that number 2 on my list, Ed Wade, unjustly criticized. We don't win the World Series in 2008 without Ed Wade. He drafted Ryan Howard, Jimmy Ron, all these guys that got us to the World Series. They were all Ed Wade guys, Cole Hamels and whatnot. So he's unjustly criticized. But Ruben Amaro was put in a position where he had all these guys up for their first big contracts. You just won a World Series. You can't let them all go. You got to keep Ryan Howard. You got to keep Chase Utley. You got to keep Jimmy Rollins. You got to keep Carlos Ruiz. He let Jason Worth walk, but he had to keep all these guys. He had to find a way. Now, all of a sudden, the city is red October every year, 07, 08. He's got to find a way to try to sustain it. But Ed Wade didn't do anything to help. Ed Wade got us to the point and then walked away and didn't help save. He had to try to figure out how to keep this momentum going. Yes, he gave out bloated contracts to Carlos Ruiz and Chase. Ryan Howard's contract was not a bloated contract. It was actually under market value. If you look at the other first basemen that signed around 08, 09, 10, the Carlos Gonzalez, the big cat, Andres, who was it? Well, we had Prince Fielder. He signed a contract that was bigger, blew it, was terrible. Albert Pujols, people are still paying that Albert Pujols contract. There's one other first baseman that signed a huge contract, bigger than Ryan Howard, and they all failed. If Ryan Howard doesn't blow his ACL in 2011, that contract is looked at as a bargain. Ruben Amaro tried his best. He kept us in it every year. He saw our prospects as what they are, prospects, and let them walk. Trade them away for Hunter Pence, for whoever he needed to bring in Roy Oswalt, Michael Young, whatever, to try to continue that success. None of those prospects panned out. Carlos Carrasco is the only one that kind of semi-panned out. But Ruben Amaro and Ed Wade were such crucial parts of that 07 through 2011 run. Hell, even in 2012, I think we finished 81-81 in 2012. I mean, he was still trying, and maybe he held on too long. But he was putting in that inevitable task of trying to sustain almost lightning about. I mean, who would have thought Shane Victorino or Jason Worth were going to be what they were? We were trying to run Charlie Manuel out of town at one point. Maybe he was unjustly criticized at first. But Ruben Amaro, I think, gets way too much criticism for being actually a really damn good GM. Just put in a tough spot. Made a lot of great trades. We just couldn't win another World. It's why winning a World Series is so difficult. And back then, with only 4 teams from each league making the playoffs, it was hard to make the playoffs, let alone make it to the World Series. So I think Ruben Amaro is extremely unjustly criticized. I think if I had to put a list, I think Jonathon Gannon would be in my top 5 list. I don't know the exact order. I'm just spitballing. But Ruben Amaro would be on my top 5 list of most unjustly criticized people. Jonathon Gannon would be. Donovan McNabb would be. Sam Hinkie. And I don't know who that 5th person of most unjustly criticized Philadelphia sports figures would be. But I think that Ruben Amaro needs to be on that list. I don't know. I'm glad you appreciate that Ruben Amaro poll. And I really wish more of my Phillies followers would have come up with that name on my list there. They did not, but it is what it is. I am a big supporter of Ruben Amaro. And again, if anybody out there watching this show, make sure, like I always say, you like and you subscribe to the DSM Media YouTube channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. But make sure you follow us everywhere on all social media platforms. If you know Ruben Amaro, you know a way to get in contact with Ruben Amaro, because just shouting him out on Twitter ain't working. I want Ruben Amaro on the show. And I would love to have a baseball conversation with a guy that's been in baseball since he was a child, because his dad was a baseball player. So I would love to have Ruben Amaro on this show. It would be one of my top 3 or 4 dream guests to have on this show. But anyway, that's that conversation. We're going to continue this thread of conversation unjustly criticized over the next couple of days, because the poll is still running through Saturday. So I'm going to continue to hope that people kind of jump in the conversation on that thread on Twitter. You can find it at Beard and Knowledge. It's there. It's one of the top 2 or 3 posts on my timeline there. All right, so we do got to get to the last 15 minutes of the show. A little Sixers talk here. Sixers tonight against the Portland Trail Blazers in Portland. Game 4 of this 5-game road trip that they're on. Would never have thought they'd be 3-0 on this West Coast trip. Never would have thought that. The one big thing that I want to start with as we get set for tonight's game, I kind of touched on it a little bit this week. I've touched on it on Twitter a little bit, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it. But something popped in my head 5-10 minutes before the show that made me think I'm okay with it, maybe. So we've talked about it. So Tyrese Maxey has now, for the last 2 games, I believe it is, come off the bench for the Sixers. Now, when he first came back from being injured, the first couple games he came off the bench, that was because they were kind of trying to limit his minutes, limit his thing. But then after 2 or 3 games, he was right back in the starting lineup. Now, the last 2 games he's come off the bench purposely. He does not sound happy about it, but Tyrese Maxey's in that Jalen Hurts to an extent, maybe Miles Sanders to an extent, situation where he just wants to play. He wants to do whatever's best for the team. He's a team-first guy, not a me-first guy, Tyrese Maxey. Now, we've heard from Joel Embiid a few times in the last couple of weeks about him and James Harden. They're still trying to make it work. They're making it work. They're playing great basketball, but they both believe that there's still a lot of room to grow in that duo, reaching what their peak potential as a duo, as a top two. I mean, I know everybody talks about the big threes in the NBA, but behind every big three in the NBA, there's really a big two and a third wheel. And I think Tyrese Maxey's that third wheel in the big three, really. It's really Harden and Embiid. And while Tyrese Maxey is the future of this team, and he's a huge, huge part of this team, isn't having James Harden and Joel Embiid find that potential, find that maximum potential, the most important thing to get us to a title? And I think it is. And see, the thing is, if you could get the first 5 to 7 minutes of the game without Tyrese Maxey on the court, where James Harden and Joel Embiid continue to work on their pick and rolls, their play together as a whole, offensively and defensively, I think big picture, come playoff time, it'll make a big difference. I think come playoff time, if we can get 20 or 30 games in a row with just them two having more minutes by them, because you got to think about it, Tyrese Maxey wants his shots. Tyrese Maxey's a confident shooter. And I've talked about in the past that Tyrese Maxey plays better when it's just him and Tobias Harris and he's not on the court with Joel Embiid. Because I don't know if it just doesn't work, or if he's just so young and he's kind of he kind of defers to the bigger stars because he's the younger guy. And once that they go out of the game, you start to see Tyrese Maxey flourish a little bit more. So I don't like Tyrese Maxey coming off the bench. But if you think about it, he played 31 and 28 minutes the last two games coming off the bench. So he's still getting his minutes. He's still putting up 20 points a game. He actually, in the last game, he shot 7 of 12 from the field. I think 4 or 5 from 3 or 3 or 4 from 3. So he still played really well off the bench. And you get Harden, you get Embiid, you get them more minutes playing together without having to worry about trying to get Maxey his turn in the early parts of the game. And then come crunch time, the end of a game, in a close game, you're still going to see all three of them on the court. But by that point, a basketball game, you start to develop a rhythm in a game, and if you get in the flow of the game, by the end of the game, it doesn't matter who's on the court. As long as they're in the flow and they're playing well, they'll all get their opportunity. So I think big picture, for at least the next 20, 30 games, Maxey coming off the bench is not the most scary proposition as I thought it would be. It's not this, I want to freak out, because Tyrese Maxey's being demoted to the bench, as the overreaction would say it is. You're doing it to give James Harden and Joel Embiid more opportunities to work on their two-man game. Which, if Joel Embiid and James Harden can find a way to peak in their two-man game, this Sixers team may become unstoppable. Putting D'Anthony Melton in that starting lineup opposite of him helps improve your defense, obviously. It also, D'Anthony Melton, he gets his shots. He's shown that he can knock down a three-point shot. But he also doesn't have to have the ball. D'Anthony Melton's one of those guys, if he gets 8 points a game, he's happy. Well, I don't know if he's happy, but that's okay. It's not going to, if he drops from 20 points to 8 points, it's not going to be the end-all. Quietly, I've been preaching it. I've been talking about their run. They're 17-4 in their last 21 games. And yeah, they're in the 3 seat now in the Eastern Conference. Now, yes, they're still 4.5 games behind the Celtics, who are in the number 1 spot, but we faced the Celtics a whole bunch of times coming down the stretch. So I'm not worried about the Eastern Conference. Right now, I'm not worried about the standings. I'm worried about finding a way for Embiid and Harden to hit that two-man game peak that they potentially could reach. Joel Embiid's playing at an MVP level. James Harden's playing at his best level in the last hiccups there. Playing at the best level the last 2 or 3 years of his career. Find a way to make those two peak as a duo. If it means Tyrese Maxey off the bench, it might be the right answer. I hate. I'm not a Doc Rivers guy. Hate's a tough word. I don't like hate. Hate's a strong word. I strongly dislike Doc Rivers. But if this move helps Joel Embiid and James Harden find that peak potential, it might be the best move that he's made, and it might be the thing that helps propel us maybe out of the second round of the playoffs. Because James Harden and Joel Embiid, if they peak, if they find a way to max out, I don't know if they're going to be able to be stopped in the Eastern Conference. In the NBA. Now, I'm not trying to reach it. Like, I wanted a big season from the Sixers. I don't know. I didn't know. And then they struggled out of the gate, and I kind of got really down on them and said maybe they'd even be a first-round exit. I'm not trying to say that I think that they can make a run to the finals now. I'm just saying that maybe this move puts them in the best position to maximize that opportunity. Now people are going to talk about trades. There's going to be trades coming up as the deadline approaches in mid-February here. It's probably only a couple of weeks away. Whether Korkmaz goes, Jaden Springer goes, there's talks that they want to trade guys just for whatever, just to clear some of that luxury tax threshold off the books. That might happen, whatever. They might be buyers in the buyout market. Who knows if they do that? But there's going to be no big moves. It's going to be up to Doc Rivers to find the right rotation of their top 9, 10 guys that maximizes that Joel Embiid and James Harden duo. I really, truly believe that's what this season is going to come down to. And I think that's why he's moved. Now, he's hinted, Doc, that he's got 2 or 3 different starting rotation ideas in his head, and he might roll them out over a couple weeks to see what happens. Honestly, I would just roll with this one. I know a lot of people say bench P.J. Tucker or bench Tobias Harris or trade Tobias Harris, whatever. You're not trading Tobias Harris unless you get an awesome offer. And P.J. Tucker, whether he starts and plays 20 minutes a game or comes off the bench and plays 20 minutes a game, as long as you're keeping him out of that 28 to 32-minute range, I don't care what you do with P.J. Tucker. It is what it is. Yeah. Well, I did that at the beginning of the season. I stopped calling him Glenn because I just kept messing it up too much. I just couldn't keep it straight. I just couldn't. So tonight, the Sixers have the Portland Trailblazers. Now, Portland, 21-23 in Portland. Portland's one of those teams. I mean, the Sixers are favored, 2.5 points, as they should be. I mean, they're a better team than Portland, but Portland always is a dangerous team, and Portland's always a team I watch a lot of basketball of because I'm a Dame Lillard fan. Always have been. He's always been a Portland first, a team first guy. He could have asked out of that city and that organization countless times in his career, and he wants to be the guy that leads Portland to the title or to the NBA Finals or the Western Conference Finals, or has he even made it out of the second round? I don't even know. But he's coming to the point in his career where the luster and love of Dame Lillard has kind of slid down a little bit for me, just because it's not his first year. It's not his 5th year. He's been in the league a long time now. And he's still just this. He does his best to keep this team, in it, but never take them over the top because, they've tried different combinations. But he's still a scary guy. He still scores close to 30 points a game, 7 assists a game this year. They're struggling right now, Portland. Let's see, I'm pulling up their schedule here. They've lost 6 of their last 8 games. They've lost something like 4, 10. I think it's like 6 of they've lost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They've lost 10 games out of their last 13 games, so they're 3-10. So they're a struggling basketball team right now. But it doesn't mean that they're not dangerous. You're not going to stop Damian Lillard from scoring 20 to 30 points. You got to try to make sure he doesn't go off for 45. Anthony Simons is finally coming to his own now that C.J. McCollum's not there. He's a 20-plus point scorer a game. They've got former Sixer process guy Jeremy Grant. He scores 20-plus points a game. He's actually had a huge resurgence in Portland. He's got his three-point percentage up to almost 42.9, so basically a 43% from deep. You got 3 guys that shoot 37 to 43%. Not 4. Their center, Nurkic, shoots almost 40% too. So they got guys that could shoot the ball. They got guys that could score and fill up the stat sheet, but they just don't win games. So how did the Sixers go about beating Portland tonight and making it 4? I said it. I was going to do, I didn't say cartwheels, but I said I was going to jump up and down for joy if this team won 4 out of 5 on this West Coast trip. How do they do it and get to their 4th straight win on this West Coast trip? It's containing Damian Lillard, keeping him under 40 points. It's not letting Jeremy Grant go off against his former team. Well, actually, a guy that's become, always been one of my quietly favorite players in the NBA, Josh Hart's on this team as well. He's one of the stars on this team. You know, former Villanova product, scores 10 points a game, gets 8 rebounds. He does all the dirty work. If somebody was injured, he could pick up the scoring slack if he needed to. But when he's not, he's kind of just that guy that does all the dirty work, grabs the rebounds, plays great defense, makes a bucket when necessary, doesn't have to be forced to find his own shot. I'm a big Josh Hart fan, and whenever I have a chance to watch Josh Hart play basketball, I love to do it. Now, I guarantee I won't watch all of tonight's game. It doesn't start till 10, probably 10:10. So I'll probably watch the first half of the game and then pass out because we'll be back here doing the show again tomorrow morning. But to win this game, they just need to control, not let any of these guys go up. Keep Damian Lillard under 40 points. Keep Jeremy Grant right around 20 points. Don't let Anthony Simons is one of those type of basketball players that when the Sixers have a bad game defensively, and they got a lot of great, scorers from the outside, and we struggle wing defending. Anthony Simons is one of those guys that can go off for 30 points tonight because and make 6 of 8 threes because we struggle to defend those kind of players. Containing those guys. You're not going to stop them, but you can contain them. And that's what the Sixers need to do tonight. They need to let Embiid and Harden continue to work on that 2-man game. They need to do that. And then somebody off the bench is going to – Tyrese Maxey now is a bench guy, but he's still playing starter minutes. Who is going to be that 4th guy? Is Tobias Harris going to be that guy? I don't know. Who's going to be the guy that guards Jeremy Grant? Is it going to be P.J. Tucker? Are we going to see a game? This is a game where you would want to see more Matisse. But again, Matisse is still up and down. Last game, he played 8 minutes. Game before that was 22 minutes. What Tyrese Maxey minutes are we getting? Because Maxey's a guy that can guard Jeremy Grant or Anthony Simons, have a hand in his face when he's taking those 3-point shots. I don't know. That's kind of what they need to do. They need to figure out who's going to be that wing defender that's going to slow down these guys from going off for 30, 40 points, 6, 7 threes from one guy. Jeremy Grant's always motivated. When he was in Detroit for a few years, always motivated to play the Sixers. Always regret it giving up. I mean, out of all the process guys that went on to play for other teams, it's got to be Jeremy Grant and T.J. McCollum, the two that have had the most. Actually, I don't know if T.J. McCollum's had a lot of success in Indy. His role has pretty much stayed the same. Probably Jeremy Grant's the guy that's gone on to the most success outside of Philly after leaving the process era Sixers. Trying to think of another name that might have had more success than Jeremy Grant at this point. And we've had opportunities. There's been rumors in the past years to bring him back. Now he's cemented there in Portland's rotation. But, I've always regretted, or I bet you the Sixers have always regretted moving on from him. Portland right now, let's see, where are they in the standings? They're tied for the last playing game spot with Minnesota at 10 a.m. So they're playing. Dude, I was looking at the NBA standings earlier before the show this morning. And can you imagine that right now in the NBA Western Conference, that Golden State is in the 7th seed, a play-in game. Phoenix Suns are not in the playoffs. They're a half a game out of the play-in 10 spot. The Lakers are a game and a half out of a play-in spot. The Western Conference has flipped so much. You got Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, New Orleans, 1, 2, 3, 4, with Dallas and Utah 5 and 6. Who would have thought the Western Conference? I mean, it is just a changing of the guard, a change. And it's not like there's not stars. You still got, Nikolai Jokic with Denver. You've got Ja Morant. You got Halliburton in Sacramento, and you got Zion Williamson in New Orleans. It's a changing of the guard of stars. It's no longer, Chris Paul with Portland or Steph Curry leading the charge in the Western Conference. I still can't get over Golden State's record. They're 22-22. They're 17-5 at home and 5-17 on the road. It's insane to me to see what has happened to Golden State. I know they've been banged up. I know Curry's missed time this year, but they were just as bad when Curry was there. So I don't know what's going on there in Golden State. I think it's the end of the run there. There's going to be some big changes in the offseason there in Golden State probably. But contain Portland. Because as bad as, I shouldn't say bad, as mediocre of a team as they are, they were playing pretty good basketball most of this year. They've just had a really cold stretch right now. So the key is keep working and beating hard. The key is continue to see if you can develop this Maxey off the bench thing. The key is who is going to be that wing defender that slows down all their three-point shooters of Portland? And who's going to be that fourth scorer tonight? Is it going to be Tobias Harris? Is he going to have a good game scoring tonight or not? I don't know. We're going to see. I think the Sixers win tonight. I'm not concerned about Portland. I think they're motivated and they're focused right now. Would I be surprised if they lose? No. Going 4-0 on a West Coast trip is near impossible for an East Coast team. But the Sixers team is set up for it. It is possible that they do it. So, that being said, we are going to wrap up Trending the AM right here. Thank you to everybody commenting and jumping in on this show. If you're watching on replay, don't forget to drop your comments and thoughts and questions, especially on that poll that we discussed of who's the most criticized Philadelphia sports figure of the last 20, 25 years. How do I feel about Jokic and Embiid? It's Embiid. The one that Scotty brought up about Olajuwon, Embiid playing. We're out of time. I don't know if I have enough time to go into that one. But Embiid, to me, is better. Jokic puts up the numbers, but I think Embiid is unjustly criticized. I really do. But we got to wrap the show up, Rio. Sorry that you're checking in late there. Go back and catch the whole replay of the show. There's a lot of great content, a lot of great information in this show. Drop your comments, thoughts. I will get back to you all in the comments section. Hit me up on Twitter, @BeardedKnowledge, and I'll answer any of your thoughts there too. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on because you never know when DSM is going to go live, and you're not going to want to miss it. Thank you for tuning in, Trending the AM. Again, now, all of a sudden, we just jumped up 4 new viewers on YouTube coming in right now. Go back and watch the replay. Show's over. Go Birds. Sixers, ring that damn bell tonight. Get another W. Everybody have a great day. Go Birds.